kind of expect to have the transmission on the ground in about an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me?
I have never smelled transmission fluid like this. Alright, so welcome back to the channel. So just recently we finished an axle swap and I ended up getting a parts truck for a reasonable price. So now we are doing a transmission swap. Okay, so this is a transmission we're putting in. It is a ZF5-47. So there are two variations that will work on the Powerstroke. The ZF5-47 and -42. The 42 came with the IDIs. The 47 came with the Powerstrokes. They'll both work, but the 47 is stronger and has a little bit deeper gearing. It's better for towing, which is one of the main reasons why we're doing this. So the transmission on our truck is more or less fine. It does have some torque converter stuttering, so I could probably replace the torque converter. At the end of the day, I hate pulling with an automatic, especially an old 4-speed like this, and this is just gonna do much better. It is a bit of an involved job. It's not terribly difficult. The hardest part is actually physically putting the manual onto the engine. Getting the splines line up is the hardest part. Other than that, it's just bolts. So to do this swap, it is much easier with a donor truck, but we're gonna run down a quick parts list of everything you're gonna need. Obviously transmission. If it's 4-wheel drive, you can use your automatic T-case, but you do have to get the right length arm because the transmission's 5 inches shorter. You need the clutch, flywheel, pressure plate. You can use the automatic PCM and wiring. I have access to the manual wiring, which I'm gonna do. You do have to modify it a little bit, but it's not overly difficult. You don't actually have to re-flash or get the manual PCM. It'll run more or less perfectly fine with the automatic one. What we are gonna do is, because we have the PHP Hydra, we're gonna essentially re-flash it and make it think that's an automatic. Hopefully in doing that, we're gonna retain our cruise control. That is one downside to this, is you have to rewire something for the cruise control to work. One way to get around that I'm hoping to do to get around that, is by changing out the steering column with the manual one, and that way that'll eliminate the wiring that's in the automatic that'll mess it up. So the steering column is an optional thing that you can do. It'll make things easier. You need the pedals, the pedal box, and the master and slave cylinder for the clutch. You need the transmission cross member, and then after that is just drive shafts. Alright, so I just finished pulling the transmission off of the manual truck. It's pretty disgusting on the outside. The fluid was clean, there was no metal bearings in it or anything like that. I'm going to take the inspection plates off just to double check everything, but it feels really good. I have no indication that something's wrong. The guy did have an exhaust leak on both sides of both up pipes, and the down pipe was leaking, so it looks dirty. It's mostly soot. So what we're going to start doing now is taking the automatic off of our truck. First things first is the drive shafts. Rear has to come off. I already have my front off. After that, it's disconnecting all the wiring from the transmission and the T-case. It runs up to the driver's side. And then after that, it is taking the torque converter bolts off. Probably get most of the transmission bolts off. There's, I believe, 6 or 7 of them. One of them is behind the downpipe, which will be more of a nightmare. So with an automatic, it's generally easier to do than a manual. Kind of expect to have the transmission on the ground in about an hour and a half. Pretty sure that this automatic is blown.
Really?
Yeah, because there was no oil on the dipstick when I took it out. Yeah, this transmission was gonna blow.
How long do you figure?
Oh, who knows? It could have lasted us until next year, but it is definitely in low on oil long enough that it'll damage something. Okay, so looking at the transmission and the bolts on the top of the bell housing, it's going to be easier to get them through the floor. So I am going to take the seats out now, remove some of the plastic parts along the doors and the transfer case shifter to get all that plastic out of the way. Then we can pull the carpet back and remove the tunnel, and then that way I'll have actual access to those 2 top bolts and maybe get around taking the downpipe off. Okay, so there's 2 jobs. Either you come onto this side and you lift up and crawl through the vehicle, or you hold it the entire time coming out and I crawl through the vehicle.
How heavy is it?
We'll lift it up.
I'll crawl through. I got it. It's really heavy.
Okay, do you want to put it down?
Yeah. Oh my word, these are tight.
Not stripping them, are you?
And maybe it's because I have the baby screwdriver. Because you're putting a manual into the truck, which I cannot drive.
Yeah.
I feel like I should get to pick the little knob thingy that goes on top.
With my approval, you can do it.
Very sparkly, covered in gemstones.
Then no. Two of my issues with aftermarket balls, they're never as comfortable as the factory one. That's actually why I don't like them. Pull back here, yeah. Slide up. The heck? Look at all the holes they screwed into this.
My word. For some reason I was imagining that we'd have to like saw a big hole into the floor to stick the manual shifter through. I didn't imagine it was like just a plate underneath.
Some of them you do, the Dodge just don't have this removable thing. Ford is much better and much worse for the same reasons that if this truck didn't have power windows or power locks, everything is here for power windows and power locks. I just need to put the motor into the door. They only make one wiring harness for the entire dash for every single vehicle, diesel, gas, fully loaded, not fully loaded, so they only have one line do. So this is basically the same idea where they make one cab and it has a hole here, but they make two of these because this is much easier to manufacture than a different cab. It's a good and a bad thing. Like I could customize this vehicle, and if it didn't have power windows or power locks or power mirrors, I could easily do that. But at the same time, you end up having problems with like, well, I have 4 or 5 extra connectors in there that don't do anything because like it's a gas option. Like we have all the wiring in there for the manual. That's why this is so easy. I'm just gonna plug it in because it's there.
They certainly were pretty
liberal with the sealer.
yeah.
This is the first thing that actually is coming off the truck that we don't need.
We can end it ceremoniously.
Alright, so as you can see, we got the tunnel cover off. It's pretty simple to get off. And once you do, you have way more room to access the top of the transmission. I'm also gonna leave it off for getting the manual up. Just have way more room to bring the shifter up and push the transmission forwards. But the main reason I did this is there's a bolt up here, right about there, for the transmission going into the engine. And you can't get it from underneath because the downpipe is in the way. I don't want to take this downpipe off. It's an aftermarket 3-inch round one, so it's a nightmare to get in. Right now I can reach up and touch this bolt without any issue. Same with on this side. So there's 2 right up here and then 2 on each side, and I believe there's 2 kind of near the bottom on both sides. But this has made getting that one off much easier. I don't have to touch the downpipe, which is a huge win.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Our engine has way more compression than the other one.
The parts truck?
Yeah, which is hardly surprising, but that's a good thing. So I was just trying to get the top bolts off of the transmission, and my firewall is still intact. The seam is still out, so I can't actually get at them. So what we're gonna do is, right now I'm just taking off the torque converter bolts, but I'm gonna take the transmission off of the transmission cross member to drop the transmission down at the back, and that should give you enough room to get up to those top 2. Once those are off, I'm gonna lift the transmission back up, reposition the second jack right under here, and then take the rest of the bolts off. As soon as we do that, well, I mean, it'll be time to come off at that point. The crossmember will be gone, torque converter will be disconnected, and all the bolts will be off. So should be coming down in the next couple of minutes here. Torque converter is loose. It will pull off of the flex plate.
That is gross.
This is our wiring harness for the auto.
Okay, let's pull the transmission off.
Are you kidding me? This one stupid wire's holding it on this side. It just doesn't want to come off. Torque converter's still holding it on. Still has the shaft going through it and the bolts going through it, so you have to pull it out still. I think it's free. It's caught on the downpipe. It's not even caught on the downpipe, it's caught on the clamp for the downpipe. Shoot.
So you're gonna take the whole downpipe off?
It's just a little section of it. Come on out of there. Ooh. Oh, I think it just came free. The bolt is free, but now it won't come out and it's in the way. Okay, transmission's coming down.
Well, that was very dramatic.
That was a little faster than I was hoping for. Oh,
my word! It smells so bad, everything's just leaking out of it.
Did it clear the frame? Nope, it's not. Why would it?
It's gonna need to go up significantly.
Yes, I know. I had to do this to get the manual out too.
Is it supposed to smell this bad?
No.
Like it smells like septic.
Leah, I do not know why it smells like that because I've never smelled transmission fluid that's like that.
Well, that can't be good.
That's inside the transmission. It's coming from in here somewhere. This one was on there, and I know that this is a good transfer case, so I'd rather use this one. I have never smelled transmission fluid like this. It smells like septic tank, and I don't know why. It's pretty disgusting. We are gonna go ahead and clean up some of this fluid. I gotta take the torque converter out. When the transmission fell off the jack, it fell out face up, fortunately. We're gonna check out the rear main. It's not leaking, but we're there, I might as well look at it. We're gonna take the flex plate off and put on the flywheel. We need to take the transmission cooler off with the remainder of the cooler lines, and then it's time to put the transmission up. So we're gonna be putting it up without a transfer case on. That should make it a heck of a lot easier. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Oh, here we go.
No, that's all right.
Okay, so we got the flex plate off. This is sitting behind the flex plate. It is a inch spacer. It's only on the automatics. Absolutely make sure you take this off because this doesn't stop you from installing the clutch or the flywheel. What this will do is you can install the flywheel on top of this, put the clutch in, everything will bolt together. When you go to put the transmission on, it's gonna bottom out. There'll be about this much space between the transmission and the block, and then you're gonna be taking the transmission back down, the clutch and the flywheel off just to pull this off. It's just pushed on there. I took a screwdriver and just wiggled it off. This is absolutely a must to take off. What we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go under the truck and put the new flywheel on and the clutch on. Leah is going to start taking the grill off to be able to get the transmission oil cooler off. Now about putting the flywheel on, I noticed that on our truck there is a locating dowel for everything to line up. So you can see on this, there's a dowel here. The one on the manual is considerably longer. So I'm gonna go see if that comes off easily enough. And if it does, I'm gonna switch it. If it doesn't, I don't think it's a big deal because it just locates the flywheel. But I'm gonna go see if that comes off easy. You don't need to, I can, you can just put those back on. I can take it out from here. Be able to pull it up enough to be able to put it easily. Make sure you don't drag it on the AC condenser. This is the right line, right?
Yep. Your oil cooler.
Nasty.
Very nasty.
Dirt on your hands.
Oh, I got my hands dirty, jeez.
Okay, so this is the automatic transmission and transfer case wiring harness. So there's 2 plugs up here, 3 on the other end, quite a few wires in there. This is the manual one that we have. You can see it's quite a bit smaller. There's only 2 plugs. This one's for the transmission, this one's for the transfer case. 4x4 lights, and then for this one is reverse lights. So one of the issues that we have going from automatic to manual is some trucks require modifying the truck side plug-in for the harness. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have that problem. What you have to do is you have to move this red-blue wire from this pin location to another one to correlate with this plug. Mine are actually already in the same place and mine are already tied back together, so I'm thinking I'm not going to have that issue. If I do, I can't remember which pins I have to move around, but so far all of my pins are in the same place, judging by the colors. So I guess we will see when we plug this in. It's pretty easy to get off. It's just over by the driver's, right behind the fender on the driver's side, wrapping down over top of the transmission. So what we're going to do next is put the transmission on.
So Leah, what's your bet on how long this is going to take to get in?
Well, if you think it'll take half an hour, I think it'll take an hour.
Well, like I said with the Bronco, it went in 5 minutes.
It's not going to be 5 minutes.
Oh, it is not lined up. It's coming. The jack is up all the way, but the truck is too high.
So we're going to deflate the tires?
It's probably the easiest thing to do and the safest thing to do. So close. Come on. I need to be able to lift up on the front a little bit and bring the back down. Oh, don't slip out. That is frustrating.
What?
The 2 bolts that I can't actually put in are lined up. Leah?
Yeah?
Quickly get blocks for the truck. So, little update, we just got the transmission in, took a little bit longer. I did end up having to remove the downpipe. That was not letting the transmission go up high enough, and so that took the majority of this time. Getting the transmission up only took, I'm gonna say about half an hour of fighting. the transmission specifically. My jack wasn't going up high enough, so we had to drop air pressure, and as soon as we did that, it pretty much like clicked into place while I was dropping air pressure. So yeah, it's a bit of an update. Have the exhaust out. We got the oil cooler out. Now I'm just tightening up the bolts. If you've never put in a manual transmission, you're gonna be tempted to once you get close, but never use the bolts to suck the transmission in. You wanna make sure that it's made it up by itself, and then put the bolts in. So right now, there's 2 bolts on each side of the transmission at the bottom, tightening those up, and then once they're tight, we're gonna let the jack down, and I can get the top 2. All right, let's let the jack down. Installed. This is really difficult. Alright, so we just got the drive shaft up. It had to get extended by about 5.5 inches, 5.25 inches. I can't remember what it is. We have the transmission and the transfer case sitting on the cross member right now. Nothing's bolted down. There are 2 extra braces for the cross member, and from factory the bolt comes down. However, the body to the frame is only long enough for the nut, so I need to cut the bolt to the right length and put everything upside down. So I still have to do that to get all the mounts in. But this is where we're sitting for tonight. Tomorrow we are going to get the cross member all bolted in and work more on the interior. We're going to get the pedals put in, the manual steering column put in. We're going to put the tunnel on and roll the carpet over and cut the carpet. And then after that, we're going to probably run the manual wiring harness and re-flash the computer and start putting things back together. Yeah, that's where we're at.
All right, so welcome back. I believe this is day 3. We had to take the transmission down. When I put the mount on, I found that the tail housing on the transmission was cracked, so I have that off. The transmission is actually completely disassembled, and we're getting that fixed tomorrow. And then we'll be putting the transmission back together and back up onto the truck. So right now, while I wait for tomorrow, we're going to do the steering wheel and the pedals. We're going to be running everything, getting it all ready. We're also going to be cutting the hole in the floor. So when we do get the transmission, I can just throw it back up, and we'll be closer without losing much time. To get the pedals out, I'm also going to be switching to the manual steering column, so we're going to start disassembling that. It's going to be much easier with this column out to get the pedals in anyways. So to do that, it's just 6 bolts that hold up the steering column, 2 right here, 2 right here, and then 2 further back, 1 bolt holding the steering column onto the steering shaft. It's quite simple. Make sure you unplug everything off the steering column. You do have to take your column plastic off to be able to get 1 plug off that's way up here. And to do that, you do need to take the key out. So once you get the plastic out, you put the key in, turn it to, I believe, the on position, and then there is a ball right here that you push on, and then this will turn and pull out. Yes, you need to make sure to unplug everything. Don't take the steering wheel down until you have all the wiring disconnected. Anything that's been zip tied like this on there, disconnect, pull that out, and you'll have much better access to getting the pedals. For the clutch, master, and slave cylinder, there is already a cutout up kind of above the gas pedal. It's held in by two bolts. Got to take those off. And then the pedal set with the clutch will have the studs on it for the master cylinder to attach to. So it's all one big unit. That's why getting everything out of the way is much simpler to do. It's quite difficult to get in and out. So we're going to start disassembling this. Okay, so this thing that I cut a couple times is the shifter linkage. Comes up with a grommet in the hole in the floor. If you have a manual donor truck, grab the grommet, or I guess you can find a way to seal this. So we pulled our key out. We're gonna put that into the manual steering column and install that along with the pedals. So the next thing to do is there are 6 bolts that hold in the brake. They're all around where the brake shaft comes in right here. There's this connector on it, as well as a cotter pin that has to get pulled off. This piece will slide off of here that way. Just give it a good push, and then the brake will come down. So there's 4 going in that way and 2 going up like that. Now, if that looks awkward and difficult, it is. Getting the next one on the manual with the clutch is going to be quite difficult because it's quite a bit bigger. So last 2 things we're going to get off. There's 2 bolts holding the plate on where the clutch master cylinder comes through the firewall, right up back there. I'm going to take that off. I have these 2 lines for my gauges to run through there, so I'm going to have to find somewhere else to run those. But yeah, and then it's reverse, putting everything back on. What makes this difficult is these have to line up to go back to the firewall. These have to line up with the brake booster, and on top up there, there's a ridge that this piece is gonna get caught on. So it's pretty difficult to get in and out. It's close. So just got it up, let's put all the bolts on. It didn't go in too bad. I ended up using a little pry bar up on the bottom of the dash just to get the top of the brakes box past that ledge that I was talking about. Once it slipped past that, it just kind of went in pretty easily. So I just get all the bolts done up, and then we're gonna reattach the brake because we haven't put the clutch on. But we're gonna put the clutch on before I put the steering wheel on, just because I'll have more room to work back up in there. And then once we get the clutch on, it'll be the steering wheel. No, I put the bottom in first. Oh no, I do put the top in first. Alright, so we just got the interior all put back together. We're just going to load up the file for the computer and then take it for a test drive. So I'm just about to start it up. I modified the manual transmission wiring harness a little bit. I just had to move one of the pins. The rest were already in the same position as my auto wiring harness. So before I finish putting everything together, we're going to start it up. I did read on forums, if you don't get a wait to start light, something is wrong. So I am getting the wait to start light, and it shouldn't start unless I push the clutch in. So we're gonna see if it'll start. That's the wrong thing. No, I'm not getting that. Alright. Well, time to look at what's going on. Okay.
Did this make your day or what? What?
Well, this is gonna be a little bit difficult to get used to driving. It's got a lot more power though. Now, if I have cruise, that would be awesome. My 4x4 lights work too. Well, that's how the e-brake actually works. No. I have yet to have a single truck with a working e-brake. Awesome. Alright, so just took it for a test drive. Drive's awesome. Really happy with it. It's not overly difficult. You can certainly do it. I mean, we did it basically on a dirt floor with a little bit of wood and some hand tools. Really looking forward to testing it out. We're going to be taking the fifth wheel to the mountains in about 3 weeks. So we'll really put it through its paces then. But yeah, it's not that difficult, and I can't wait to drive it more. So like and subscribe, more to come.
I feel like every time you say it's not that difficult. It's not. It's a piece of cake.